It had started to snow. Flurries swirled in the light of the gas lamps along the cobbled avenue outside, and the tall, slender young Englishman, on stepping into the foyer of Delmonico's, paused to brush the quickly melting flakes from the velvet lapels of his topcoat. Immediately the girl from the cloakroom hurried over. He peeled off his pearl-grey gloves and popped them into his bowler, and bending backwards a bit so that the girl could reach up to help him, wriggled out of the coat. Then, absently fingering his stylish black moustache, he looked around what was New York's most fashionable restaurant. The Christmas decorations were up, a full fortnight before the holiday, and as such rather too early by London standards. And from behind a yew tree hung with ornaments, a little maitre d' appeared. "Can I be of service, sir?" With a practised eye, the maitre d' had sized up the young man. The elegant tailoring of his clothes, the refinement of his handsome profile, the delicacy of his long fingers, and was prepared to be deferential, which was hardly ever the case when an unknown person walked into the famous restaurant. "I'm looking for Mr. Stanley," the young man said. "I was round to his hotel, and they tell me he is dining here this evening." "Are you with his party, sir?" "No, but I should like to have a word with him nevertheless." "He is here, then?" "Yes, he is. May I tell him who's calling?" The young man took an engraved visiting card from his waistcoat pocket and handed it to the maitre d'. "Please say that I'm awfully sorry to intrude in this way, but the matter is urgent." "Certainly, sir. Would you care to wait in the bar?" "And perhaps you had best also say that I've come from Sir William Mackinnon in London." "Mackinnon, sir?" "Yes, Sir William Mackinnon, of the British India Steamship Company. Shall I write it down?" "That won't be necessary. If you will, sir, the bar is just over there, behind those curtains." The maitre d' hurried off on his errand, refraining with splendid tact from looking at the young man's visiting card, at least until he had carried it off far enough into the dining room to believe that he wouldn't be seen doing so. Then he glanced at it. It was inscribed simply, A.J. Mountney Jeffson, and although the name meant nothing to him, it had a smart enough ring to allow the maitre d' to feel confirmed in his evaluation of the English youth. A.J. Mountney Jeffson, indeed. Very likely the son of an aristocrat, perhaps heir to a minor title. Jeffson smiled. He had observed the maitre d's surreptitious check of his credentials because he had not retired to wait in the bar as had been suggested. On the contrary, he had followed the maitre d' a step or two into the dining room to see where he would go, whom he would approach. For the young man, despite his elegantly cool outward manner, was in fact boyishly excited by the prospect of meeting the fabled Henry Morton Stanley. And then he saw him. He was caught unawares. He hadn't expected the maitre d' to reach his destination quite so quickly. He had rather imagined that Mr. Stanley and his party would be dining in one of the private rooms, discreetly out of sight. But the maitre d' stopped at one of the most prominently located tables, and the party seated around it, 4 men, 5 or 6 women, seemed almost ostentatiously on display. They were colourfully, if not to say garishly, dressed. A great many pink and purple and orange boas and feathered hats blossomed around the women, and they were carrying on raucously, explosions of shrill laughter punctuating their noisy chatter, as if deliberately calling attention to themselves. It was not at all what the young aristocrat had anticipated, and his heart sank with disappointment as he watched the maitre d' bend over the man at the head of the table, whose back was to Jeffson, and deliver his card. But then the man turned. His face was square, perfectly square, as if hewn from a block of granite, square across the forehead beneath close-cropped iron-grey hair, square in the jaw, which seemed tensed by some private fury, and roughened over all very much like a rock by the pits and cuts of smallpox and other scars. Under the broad, often broken nose was a moustache as unstylishly short-clipped as the hair, but greyer in colour, barely concealing the hard, thin line of the mouth. The cheekbones were unusually high, and the eyes, deeply set in their shadow, were narrow and slanted, almost oriental, and of a strange colour, flickering in the flare of the restaurant's gas lamps somewhere between grey and green. These eyes stared at Jeffson piercingly, trying to make him out, fix him among the other figures lounging in the foyer, as a hunter might stare at his prey or a killer at his enemy. He stood up. Surprisingly, he was only of medium height. Jeffson had thought he would tower over the little maitre d', yet he was the taller by barely half a head. But he was as square in his body as in his face, and as rock-hard, the muscles of his arms and